From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Stuck at the bottom of a lake for more than 100 years.
With a load of whole rye grain that's never been seen by anybody that's alive today.
See how researchers tried to bring this rye back to life. Doing more with less.
Our costs are still very minimal because we're only spraying that target weed that's out there.
How one farmer is driving technology using sustainability as his goal. As a new Trump trade team starts to take shape.
The president-elect's going to want to come in and look and see how USMCA is working. Are there things that can be done better?
How trade could be different this time around, right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. President-elect Trump has announced who he would like to serve as his top trade official during his second term, nominating Jamieson Greer to serve as U.S. Trade Representative. Now, the 44-year-old is no stranger to the Trade Representative's office. During Mr. Trump's first term, he served as Robert Lighthizer Chief of Staff. He most recently worked as a partner on a law firm's international trade team. Now, a statement from the Trump-Vance transition team said, quote, Jamieson will focus the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative on reining in the country's massive trade deficit, defending American manufacturing, agriculture, and services, and opening up export markets everywhere, end quote. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, while the new possible trade czar may have previous experience in the last Trump administration, does that mean the trade policy will be the same? And are we headed for a trade war?
Maybe, but the market views tariffs as a threat to start negotiations, not a shift in trade policy, since Trump values strong markets. Yet Greer played a key role in imposing tariffs in Trump's first term and was tapped for USTR just a day after announced plans for 10 to 25% import tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, which account for over 40% or $2 billion of U.S. trade. So if we're headed for a trade war, will it be different for agriculture than 2018? The U.S. trade deficit hit a record $32 billion in 2024 and is forecast to surge to $46 billion in 2025. President-elect Trump is trying to reverse that in his second term with talk of tariffs on the top three trading partners for the U.S. Some economists say tariffs, especially across the board, though, are just a leverage tool.
Would you really put tariffs on those and increase costs for the consumer at the grocery store, when everything we're seeing is that the prices at the grocery store is one of the biggest factors in how people voted this fall?
When you think about it, Mexico's our number one market, Canada's number two. That's USMCA. I'm certain that the president-elect's going to want to come in and look and see how USMCA is working. Are there things that can be done better?
However, Trump's cabinet and the USTR office seems to be preparing for a legislative approach to tariffs, which could involve Congress playing a more significant role in tariff implementation.
When you think back to the trade fight we had 17, 18, those were tariffs that, it did create a retaliation, and those tariffs, like I say, they stuck. They're still here.
If tariffs lead to another trade war, the fight with China could look different than 2017-18 because they and the U.S. are in a different economic and trade position.
The trade relations have already been strained. We, both the United States as well as China, have already made some adjustments in their trade flows and how they're handling some of their trade relationships. So this will play out differently.
Hopefully a spat can be averted because the U.S. desperately needs exports to chew through the burdensome ending stocks of grains and oilseeds that are depressing prices. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. USDA looking ahead to fiscal year 2025, forecasting that U.S. ag imports are projected to soar to a record $215.5 billion, while exports are forecast to decline to $170 billion, creating a $45.5 billion trade deficit. That would be up $3 billion from the last forecast.
Sustainable Farming Week is sponsored by John Deere. Your land, your brand. Technology, equipment, and support to help you farm better now and generations from now.
This week, we'll be focusing on sustainability across all of our Farm Journal brands as Farmers constantly look for ways to do more with less. They're working smarter and finding new ways to be efficient that are also good for their farm's longevity. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan introduces us to one Kansas farmer driving technology toward his sustainability goals.
Every year my brother and I, Matthew, were partners, and we kind of like to take a 30,000-foot approach and poke holes in our operation. And where are we spending too much money? Where can we save?
A never-ending journey to solve problems on their own farm. They started AgDay Products to manufacture specialty ag chemicals and fertilizers.
I like to say our farm is a 20,000-acre research farm. In our office, we have a full-scale laboratory with formulation chemists, PhD chemists, chemical engineers. So we see problems on the farm and we bring them back to our formulations team and we try to work on solutions.
With the farm to then put those products to the test, Jaeger says they're constantly innovating. Diving right into the latest technology, one of the latest products they decided to try wasn't something they produced on their own. Instead, it was added to this.
It's like that technology was built for our farm.
John Deere's See & Spray.
We didn't approach See & Spray technology to specifically reduce costs. A lot of it for us was reducing the toxicity of some of the chemicals that we were using on the farm.
Jaeger says they run their sprayer 11 months out of the year here, and he's the one who's typically in the driver's seat.
I put about 600 hours a year in the seat of one of our sprayers, and I don't like paraquat. And what See & Spray has allowed us to do, chemistries that perform the same, but they were a little too expensive, it has allowed us to integrate that chemistry more into our operation.
Instead of looking at technology as a way to save on cost, Jaeger says it's a way to do a more effective job.
And I've found that we're going out earlier more often than we normally would. A lot of times you want to wait. If you're going to blanket spray, you want to wait till, you know, there's enough out there to justify the application. And for us, we don't have to wait because we know maybe we're only going to spray 5% of the field.
Pigweed and resistant grasses like switchgrass, those have become Jaeger's yearly battle.
What this See & Spray technology allows us to do is run a more concentrated spray mixture, a high rate of glyphosate or clethodim, but we're only spraying that particular weed, not the whole field. So we can run a higher rate of that chemical, get way better control, and our costs are still very minimal because we're only spraying that target weed that's out there.
Farming smarter while always trying to innovate. The Jaegers say it's technology like this that seem to have a perfect fit here in Southwest Kansas.
Like I said, this technology, it's like it was built for our farm.
Now, be sure to join us this week over at agweb.com for a company-wide emphasis on sustainable farming. Our editors will look at balancing practices and profits that sustain the land, resources, and family. Coverage this week over at agweb.com. How could possible new tariffs impact the ag market? We'll discuss it more coming up next. And later, researchers are attempting to grow this rye seed.
Sustainable Farming Week is brought to you by Neogen. Prioritizing herd health and embracing genomic testing are key steps toward maximizing your operation's success. Stay ahead of the curve, invest in your herd's health, and uncover their full potential.
How could tariffs impact the ag markets as well as the broader financial markets in the short and longer term? AgDay's Michelle Rook is back to explore that in Markets Now.
Joining us with markets is Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. And Jim, talk about tariffs, 25% on Mexico and Canada, 10% additional on China on the first day of the Trump administration. So let's talk about this. Short term, do you anticipate we're going to see a lot of front loading, a lot of export buying?
That is the assumption right now, Michelle, is you're going to get some front buying. Essentially, remember, the tariff right now is essentially bringing stuff in. So people are like, well, what will this matter? Because now it's going to be a race to try to get the grain or product bought before your country maybe retaliates with like-minded tariffs.
Long term, how detrimental could this be to agriculture? Are we looking at a trade war?
Unfortunately, Michelle, I think we are going to be looking at a trade war. We know what happened last time. It took months, if not years, to essentially get played out. And the reality is we really got nowhere. I mean, you had some of these deals that were made, but China never lived up to the deals that they made. So I think, unfortunately, we're going to get into the trade war.
What do the tariffs mean for the broader economy and especially inflation? And how could that impact the stock market and money flow back into ag?
Well, in general, the tariffs are, you got to view the tariffs as inflationary. I mean, I know the rhetoric is the exporting country pays the tariff. That's not how it works, folks. It's the importing buyer that pays the tariff to bring the product into the United States. And when they pay that tariff, be it 25%, if they're going to more than likely pass that tariff on to the consumer. The Walmart CEO already came out and said, look for prices to go higher if we get into a tariff war. So that is inflationary. That is going to mean the cost of goods is going to go up. It's going to mean the cost of food is going to go up for food, that we bring into the United States. And that could have a negative impact on the economy because in general, the economy is assuming the Fed's going to cut interest rates with the idea that inflation is under control. If these tariffs do start to show up on the inflationary readings and inflation starts to heat up again, at best, it may cause the Fed to pause.
Okay, we'll watch for that. Jim McCormick with agmarkets.net. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Taking a look at our precipitation forecast for the next 7 days. Big pattern starting to emerge in the country in the form of a large ridge of high pressure, really going to be clearing out most of the western parts of the United States. So I did want to zoom in especially to the East Coast, and we're picking up on a couple different trends. One of those trends actually being lake effect precipitation. We are starting to see some snow in the forecast and actually some mixed precipitation as well, as we're still kind of dealing with that cold Arctic air that did blast down over the weekend. As we can see on the eastern side of some of the Great Lakes, of course, there on Lake Michigan, starting to see some large amounts of precipitation, mostly actually being snow. And of course, on our other two Great Lakes there, again, just on the coast there, as the cold winds are moving over the warm body of water, picking up a lot of moisture and depositing them mainly in terms of snow. But also take a look at the Northeast, getting a lot of moisture in the form of rain and snow. A nice little slug there of an inch of rain really helps a lot of those communities as well, just because they've been so dry out there. All right, here's our December precipitation outlook. And as we can see, we're starting to see that La Nina pattern, especially down south, with below average amounts of precipitation, especially for northern Florida and parts of Alabama and Georgia. But we are starting to see another hot spot develop out west, so kind of keep that in mind. And again, this is for the rest of the month. Again, very, very warm down south, and again, right around normal for much of the other part of the country. Here's our drought monitor, and again, it will be updated later on in the week. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of our problem areas that are still persisting. Again, East Coast, again, still going to be very, very dry, but things are looking like they are getting better, especially in the heartland and as we make our way out west. Billings, Montana, 31 degrees, a low of 17 degrees. Billings, Missouri, 39 degrees, low of 22 degrees. And our last Billings, of course, going to be in West Virginia, where it's going to be rainy with a high of 42 degrees and a chilly low of 30 degrees.
If you're looking at the end of the year as a buying opportunity for a four-wheel drive tractor, Machinery Pete has some advice on what to pay.
Okay, folks, let's talk tractors in that 250 horsepower range. Now, just recently, I saw a very late model one. This 23 model John Deere 6R250. This sold on online dealer auction on November 25th. Came out of Wanamingo, Minnesota. Only had 20 hours on it, and it sold for $260,000. Now, for a little comparison, if you look at machinerypete.com, we've got 16 6R250s listed for sale. The highest asking price by a dealer right now is $349,000. That's on a 23 model with only 13 hours on out of Pennsylvania. And again, November 25th, online dealer auction, $260 here in Minnesota. Now, if we talk older John Deere tractors, here's a picture of a very nice one sold on an online auction November 12th. Came out of Bethany, Illinois, a sale by Big Iron. was an 08 John Deere 8230 with 3,013 hours on it, sold for $145,750. That's quite a bit higher than the current average auction price on an 8230 this year, which is just over $108,000. Now, if we switch to red tractors, I'm thinking some of you will probably remember this one I highlighted a while back. Record price on this Case IH MX 245, only 1,501 hours on it. This sold on a farm auction out of Wayne, Nebraska back end of August. I went for $142,000. That was $26,000 over the previous record high price from 11 years ago. And more recently at auction, I covered a sale, farm auction November 19th, a farm sale in Minneota, Minnesota, where this 2009 Case IH Magnum 245, 3,566 hours on it, sold for $84,000. I actually thought that was a pretty good buy, considering the average auction price on the previous 10 Magnum 245 sold at auction with between 3,000 and 4,000 hours was $112,243. So right now, just kind of depends on the condition, what it's bringing out at there at auction.
All right, thanks, Pete. We're now in the heart of the holiday season, and it's also the giving season. Now, we have Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. Well, December 3rd is considered Giving Tuesday. And the Animal Agriculture Alliance is asking folks to consider them for end-of-year donations. The organization has been around since 1987 and focuses on bringing farmers, ranchers, companies, and organizations together to safeguard the future of animal agriculture. Now, their goal is really to share the true story of what happens on the farm.
Our goal is to debunk the misinformation that's out there, as well as then help individuals make their own educated decisions about what they're willing and wanting to consume, while also providing crisis management tips and farm security and facility security resources to those within the industry.
Hall says you can donate by heading over to animalagalliance.org to make the contribution. He also says any tax-deductible donation will be matched dollar for dollar up to $100,000 thanks to the U.S. Poultry and Egg Association from now through December 3rd. Up next, collecting seeds after 145 years underwater. We'll see what these researchers are hoping to learn from rye buried at the bottom of Lake Huron in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Pivot Bio. Protect yield potential with a new mode of action in nitrogen. See how Pivot Bio fits into your fertility plan at talknitrogen.com.
In November 1878, a wooden schooner named James R. Bentley set sail from Chicago bound for Buffalo, loaded with a large shipment of rye. Now, during the voyage on Lake Huron, it sank in bad weather. The crew was saved, the rye was not. Today, researchers at Michigan State University are attempting to rescue and regrow that rye after 145 years on the bottom of the lake.
These rye seeds were at the bottom of Lake Huron for 145 years. If we can get them to germinate, that would be pretty remarkable.
It took a lot of coordination. We had 9 people on 2 boats, and we dove on a shipwreck that went down in Lake Huron in 1878 with a load of whole rye grain. This has never been seen by anybody that's alive today. It is Michigan agricultural history. It is Michigan state history.
We were able to take them out of the recovery vessels, and we were able to investigate the quality of that grain. We tried every angle that we could take, but we didn't get the seeds to germinate. It was not unexpected, right? And that's where the genome editing comes in. Amelia Orr and I were able to isolate DNA from some seeds, and we have quite a bit of DNA to work with. We're on the cusp of using some modern genome editing techniques to bring parts of the chromosomes of this rye variety into the genomes of modern rye varieties that we can then cultivate, that can be grown in farmers' fields right here in Michigan. This rye variety will persist
And our thanks to Michigan State University for sharing that incredible video. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day. Have fun.